Soon after the sun reaches its summer solstice, a quiet Alaskan river hosts one of nature's most iconic scenes. From the sea, hundreds of thousands of salmon surge upstream, guided by an instinct to spawn at their birthplace or die trying. About 60 miles from the ocean, they'll encounter a waterfall where they are greeted by some of the world's largest predators. Brown bears intuit the incoming tsunami of fish. They arrive motivated by the profound hunger that comes only after months of hibernation. Between June and October, Brooks River in Katmai National Park hosts one of the greatest gatherings of wildlife in North America. And you can watch it all on explore.org. As sockeye salmon reach their spawning areas, they morph from silvery torpedoes into red-bodied, green-faced aliens. Their time on the river is short though. They do not feed in fresh water and will die after spawning. Bears experience a different race against the clock. Before winter arrives, each bear must overcome its own unique set of challenges in order to fatten up on summer's bounty. Mother bears, such as Holly and Grazer, need to nurture and mentor vulnerable cubs while protecting them from anything that threatens their well-being. Newly weaned and other independent juvenile bears find themselves navigating an uncertain world without mother's guidance. Older bears, like the venerable Otis and the fidgety Lefty, find ways to survive despite the competition posed by younger, stronger bears. The largest and most dominant bears, those known as Chunk, 747, and 856, jostle for access to rare mating opportunities and the most productive fishing spots. By the end of summer, the triumphant salmon spawn and die. Their decaying bodies fill the river with ecosystem-sustaining nutrients. Meanwhile, the bears' effort to feast on salmon pays off in body mass. They balloon with the fat reserves necessary to sustain them through another long winter. This summer, join park rangers and me, Mike Fitz, the resident naturalist with Explore.org, to witness the drama that comes with bears and salmon living in a changing, competitive world, one in which survival and success are not guaranteed. Welcome to bearcam 2021, brought to you by Explore.org, the Katmai Conservancy, and Katmai National Park. I'm Mike Fitz, the resident naturalist with Explore.org and the author of The Bears of Brooks Falls, Wildlife and Survival on Alaska's Brooks River. I'm also so pleased to introduce esteemed Katmai National Park Rangers Naomi Boak and Leon Law. It's great to have you both on bearcam.
Thanks, Mike. It's really great to be here. You'd think we were in sunny Southern California, but actually this is Brooks Camp. And I'm Naomi Boak, and this will be my third season here. I am a reformed bearcam addict and started watching the bears in 2014. And as a ranger and a bearcam addict, I'm really looking forward to the 2021 season. And I'm very excited that Leon Law has joined us as our visual information specialist. So welcome, Leon.
Thanks, Naomi. It is truly my pleasure to join this talented media team this season. While I am new to this position, I am not new to Brooks Camp. I was a seasonal ranger back in 2017, and I absolutely fell in love with everything that this park has to offer, especially the bears. So I am super happy to be back here in person today. But Mike, could you tell us more specifically where exactly here is?
That's right. If you're not familiar with Brooks River and its location, let's take a quick tour of the river itself. Brooks River and the bearcams are located about 300 miles southwest of Anchorage, Alaska, in the west central portion of Katmai National Park. The river is about 1.5 miles long, and in this view, it flows from left to right. Brooks Falls is located at about the river's halfway mark. Along with our webcam partner, the National Park Service, Explore.org hosts and maintains several webcams at the river. The signal from the bearcams is relayed to not one, but 2 repeaters on Dumpling Mountain, which then send the signal to the small town of King Salmon, which is about 30 more miles away. At almost 4.1 million acres, Katmai National Park and Preserve is larger than any national park in the contiguous 48 states. It offers a lifetime of places to explore. Yet in the minds of many, Brooks River really is the heart of the park. In July, we might see dozens of bears fishing for salmon. Naomi, you and Leon are at the river, so can you bring us up to speed on the current events there? What's happening there right now?
Well, we're at the Riffles platform, which is about 100 yards below the falls, and we do that because if we were at the falls, you wouldn't be able to hear us. But this time of year is actually my favorite time of year at Brooks because everything is coming alive. Everything turns green so quickly, and there's love in the air. It's mating season, and young bears are courting each other. We have the arrival of some of the bears we've watched for years, like 128 and her two cubs who came this week. So every day is a new surprise with new bears, and we get to watch the squirrels who yell at us because we might interfere with eating cones, and the porcupines are waddling around. Salmon aren't here yet. We have trout in the river, but salmon will arrive soon. And Leon, what do we have to look forward to next?
Yeah, as Naomi mentioned, as we inch closer to July, we will start to see salmon arrive in the Brooks River, with the peak of the sockeye salmon run usually being around mid-July. And perhaps attentive viewers, such as yourself, might be able to catch some of the first salmon coming up the river on the underwater cam. But of course, with more salmon come more bears, and with more bears come more opportunities to watch them fish, see them interact, and perhaps maybe even see some changes in the hierarchy. We never really know what surprises will be in store for this season. But Naomi, could you tell us a little bit more about how this season might differ from the last season?
Yeah, well, 2020 was probably a very unique season here along the Brooks River. As those of you who've been with us before know that because of the COVID pandemic, the park opened until July. A lot fewer here, and a lot fewer visitors. I'm saying viewers because I'm thinking about you. So there were fewer visitors. We had a record-breaking salmon run, and we had more bears. We had over 100 bears here, not counting cubs. And because there was so much salmon, they got injured and crowded out at the falls. And so in July, we had dead and dying salmon in the lower river. And because also there were fewer people in the river, that allowed and feast. So it was a very different feeling year. And Mike, what do you think about the coming year?
Like you said, when the bears left the river last fall, it marked the end of an incredible bear camp season. We did witness the largest salmon run on record for Brooks River, and some amazingly fat bears by the end of the year. The number of salmon made life relatively easy for most bears last year, and I think there are so many stories to follow this year that kind of that are dependent on what happened last year. Leon, in particular, I'm eager to see how those dividends of fish pay off for bear families this summer.
Yeah, as with any new season, there are many unanswered questions, especially when you talk about sows with cubs too, in relation to reproductive success. And when you think about reproductive success, food availability is especially important. More salmon equal fatter, healthier female bears, which increase the likelihood that they will come back with cubs. And so when you think about that, and as people have mentioned in the past, we've had some really good salmon runs in these previous years. So that definitely contributed to the amount of family groups and cubs that we saw last year. And of course, as Naomi mentioned, 2020, we had record-breaking salmon numbers. And so perhaps that might be an indicator of what we'll see with cubs this year. So far, we have already seen several family groups return to the river, specifically with yearlings. And just yesterday, actually, one of our rangers spotted a sow with spring cubs, and that's the first sighting of spring cubs we had, so we're really excited about that. But there haven't been any other spring cubs that we've seen, and really that's not that unusual for this time of year. When you think about bears coming out of hibernation, sows with spring cubs are the last group to exit the den. And that's really important because that extra time allows those to grow as large as they can before they venture out into the world. But last season, we did see quite a few courting couples. And so there are a couple bears that we have in mind who might come back with spring cubs. We will just have to wait and see on that.
I know all of you out there have your ideas about that too.
Yes, as we all do. But other continued storylines, that includes perhaps one of Brooks Camp's most known bears, 435, and her cub. And if bearcam followers continue that story, last season, that cub did have an encounter with a porcupine and spent a good amount of the season limping around. But towards the end, they were putting more weight on that paw. And so we are happy to report that 435 and her cub are one of the bears that have returned to the river. In fact, some of you might have even seen her debut at the lower river today on the lower river cams. So that's always exciting to see who comes back.
Also, we might report that there has been an incident with a porcupine. I had walked along the trail and saw a porcupine with half its quills. And the next day, a fellow ranger told me that there is a subadult with porcupine quills in its nose. So the porcupines are making their presence known.
Yeah, so 435's cub was not a singular experience by any means, but it really demonstrates just how resilient these bears are. Another great example of that would be perhaps 128 from last season. Followers might recall that she had a pretty good gash on her head, but this year we've seen her back already playing with her cubs, and it's really not noticeable at all. So again, it just speaks to bears' resiliency. But of course, cubs can't stay cubs forever, as much as we might really want them to, or to freeze that moment. Here in Katmai, bears do tend to keep their cubs for 2 summers before they are emancipated and they go out and explore the world without mom's protection. Occasionally, we'll see sows keep their cubs for an additional summer, much like 9-4 did last year. And her cubs, yeah, they got pretty large with that extra year with mom.
That was one big den this winter.
It must have been. But Mike, could you tell us a little bit more about this transition from cub to subadult?
Yes, the subadult bears are some of the most interesting bears to watch. Subadults are young, independent bears who are not fully mature. Like Leon just mentioned, and Katmai mother bears typically keep their cubs for 2 or 3 summers, but when the families separate, the newly weaned bears must establish their own home range and find food without mother's guidance. So their world really is one of learning. It's a world of exploration. It's also certainly a world of strife. You can identify subadult bears in a couple of different ways. In appearance, they look lanky, especially in early summer. Like a human teenager, they're growing rapidly. So sometimes their head or their legs appear out of proportion with the rest of their body. And then behaviorally, subadult bears can be curious and much more playful than most adult bears. It's not uncommon to see subadult bears finding ways to entertain themselves or seek out a playmate, especially when food is plentiful. And because they're small and inexperienced, they're also quite cautious around other bears. Wariness around other bears is another characteristic you can watch for in subadults. For that reason, we typically don't see them fishing at the falls nearly as much as adult bears because they're keen to avoid the competition posed by those larger bears. In 2020, I did a count of the number of subadults identified at the river, and it was about 29 individual juvenile bears. So that's a lot, and I'm not going to pretend that I can identify them all, but there are a few that I'd like to highlight. There's a lot of different storylines associated with these young bears this year. So we can see one of the storylines is subadults maturing through that sort of subadulthood, as I like to call it. One group of those bears in particular, 101, 102 and 103. They're from a litter that was born in 2018, and will likely see their mother, 402, back this year. Last year was their first summer on their own, but they stuck around together for much of last year, if not all of last summer. So we saw them palling around together for much of 2020. And but this year, as they're growing and maturing, we're likely to see them express a much greater level of independence, even if they remain very tolerant of one another. So look for those bears as they come back to the river this year, and their maturation levels changing. We can also look forward to seeing newly separated or emancipated subadults. And the one family that I can think of, mentioned earlier in the broadcast, number 94, and her three giant 2.5-year-olds from last year. It's almost a guarantee that she's separated from those cubs this year. So they're going to be experiencing life on their own for the first time this year. So that means a lot of exploration for them, a lot of uncertainty. And whether they come back is another story. They may not. Much of the time, the young bears that are introduced to the river as cubs come back as subadult bears, but not always. They might disperse into parts unknown, but they're certainly going to experience a lot of uncertainty and challenge in their young lives. And then lastly, subadults can also be innovative. For example, we never saw bears actively hunt birds at the river until 903 did it last year, and he was successful many times. So he was born in 2016, and he's at an age right now where he technically probably isn't a subadult bear. He's transitioning into adulthood, but his behavior last year demonstrated that even young bears can be very crafty. Subadults, though, they rank at the bottom of the hierarchy. Naomi, that hierarchy is another important story arc to follow this year.
Yeah, most people think of bears as solitary animals, and in a lot of other places like the lower 48 and like Denali, they can be, because there's not a concentrated food source for them, so they're competitive with other bears and they don't see other bears very often. But around here, we have this amazing salmon buffet, and all the bears want to partake in that. And if they are going to partake in that, they have to figure out a way to do that around a lot of other bears. And they don't really want to fight, because fighting takes energy and they can't get as fat. And an injured bear can be out of commission for a while. So it behooves the bears along the Brooks River to create their own dominance hierarchy. So the most dominant bears have the prime fishing spots, and they don't have to fight for them. A bear like 856 will establish his dominance. He has been our most dominant bear for over 10 years. And he may approach another bear and let him know, hey, I'm top dog, you move out of that spot. And believe me, they learn that really quickly. He doesn't really want to fight. So after a while, you see this kind of dance of dominance where the bears know where it's safe for them to catch a lot of fish. And last year, I don't think I witnessed one real fight among the bears. There was really no need for that kind of aggression, because there was so much salmon. This year, it's going to be really interesting to watch, because 856 is getting up there in years. He's 20, 21. He's been the most dominant bear for a long time. There may be some challenges to that top position. 747, who seems to be the second most dominant bear, he's also getting up there in years. So I would predict that I wouldn't see a challenge from him. But there are a bunch of younger bears that are like 18, and it's their time to shine. I would watch Bear 151 Walker, not to take over the top spot, but he's only 14, and he has grown so much in the last couple of years. And last year, his behavior was a little more aggressive than it had been in previous years. So he's a bear to watch. Another bear to watch is Bear 503, because Bear 503 is a young adult. We think of him as a very social bear. He has his coterie of friends that he plays with, but that could change. He's becoming one of the largest bears on the river, so he might be much more aggressive. So what do you think, Mike? What do you think about the
Yes,
salmon competition this year?
well, certainly I think, yeah, we can see some shifts in the hierarchy. That's one of my favorite storylines to follow every year. But when we're talking salmon, I mean, that certainly affects basically everything that we see at the river. It's really difficult to overstate the importance of salmon to Katmai. The salmon are the cornerstones of the cultures and the economy of Southwest Alaska, as well as the ecosystem's keystone. The abundance of bears that we see at the river is completely dependent on healthy runs of salmon. So the vast majority of fish that we see at the river are sockeye salmon, and this is a view of sockeye salmon fresh from the ocean, just arrived at Brooks River from a couple of years ago or last year. The vast majority of salmon come to the river usually around late June and early July. That's really when the run peaks. And they're coming here to spawn. These are anadromous fish, meaning they are born in freshwater. They go to the ocean to grow large, and then they return to freshwater to spawn. And when they come back to spawn, when they reach their spawning site, they transition into their spawning colors. This is what they look like. Red-bodied, green-headed. They look very different than those fresh fish from the ocean. And they return to Brooks River after 2 to 3 years in the ocean. When they enter Naknek River, they swim about 60 miles to get to Brooks River. Their destination really is their place of birth. They're not going upstream and choosing a spawning site at random, typically. Nearly all the fish that we see hatched from eggs in Brooks River or the tributaries of Lake Brooks upstream are returning to this spot. So along the way, they demonstrate incredible endurance. They utilize finely tuned instincts so they can find their place of birth. They do not eat when they return to fresh water, and they survive solely on the energy stored within their bodies during that time. And for some of the fish that enter Brooks River in July, they may not spawn until October. So they're sitting there in fresh water without eating and surviving for 2 to 3 months. And then to get to Brooks River, they navigate home by using their sense of smell to detect the unique scent of the water where they were born. They imprint on those memories of the water, and they can remember that as they're smelling their way upstream. The 2020 run was last year. I mean, it was just remarkable. So when we look forward to salmon this year, we should not expect the number of fish that we saw last year. More than 4 million salmon returned to Brooks River in 2020. And that was, as far as I can tell, the single largest salmon run on Earth last year. Brooks River could have received 800,000 salmon last year. And biologists with the Alaska Department of Fish and Game have forecasted another strong this year. But even if we see 2 million salmon return to Brooks River and maybe just 200,000 or 400,000 salmon returning to Brooks River, just half the number of 2020, then it will be another really great year for bears. Leon, salmon are the reason bears gather at Brooks River. And since bears fish here in September as well, we'll get to see some very fat individuals leading up to Fat Bear Week.
Absolutely. And is it ever really too early to start thinking about Fat Bear Week?
No.
Yes, I definitely agree. It's never too early, but we might be a little biased here, but we'll leave that up to you folks to get that home. But Fat Bear Week, for those people who are unfamiliar with it, it is basically we create a March Madness style bracket where we pit some of our fattest bears against each other, and viewers, and you are able to vote and then choose who will be the Fat Bear champion. And as we look forward to 2021, it's going to be a really great year. This season, Fat Bear Week will start on September 29th and conclude on October 5th, which is Fat Bear Tuesday. And so during that time, we will have lots of live events and broadcasts all leading up to it, as well as during that week. And Fat Bear Week truly is a celebration of success. There's absolutely no fat shaming. For bears, fat equals survival. And not only that, Fat Bear Week really highlights how healthy Katmai's entire ecosystem is. So it's definitely a week-long event. It's my favorite time of year, and we all hope that you're able to join us for some of that. Based on some of the bears we've already seen, like 151 and 747, they are already looking so healthy we could almost hold a Fat Bear Week now. But Naomi, what do you think about potential competitors or bears to look for this season?
Well, certainly 151 is looking really healthy. I think, yeah, he's got a big butt there. And 747 is as big as ever. I mean, it was funny watching him run down the beach the other day because he could barely run. He's so fat right now. Um, but 747 is a favorite of mine and always a contender. But a bear that I would watch again is Bear 503. He is so big. We don't think of him as one of the biggest, but he is. And if he would do a little less playing and a lot more eating, he could be a contender this year. So Mike, I know that you are a big, so to speak, 747 fan, but who are you looking at this year?
Sorry about that. It's yeah. There's going to be, I think, a lot of competition this year at Brooks River. 747 is so big, and he's been so big for so many years. I don't think we can really overlook him. But those other bears that you mentioned, yeah, I mean, those are going to be tough competitors for him in Fat Bear Week at least. I think we can also look to some of the female bears, like Holly, Grazer. They're raising yearlings this year that typically, that's a little bit easier than raising spring cubs. So they might be able to devote more energy into their own bodies as opposed to what they would normally have to do with spring cubs and those vigilance behaviors that take away from resting or feeding. So yeah, I think it's going to be a real fun year, and to see them coming back in such great condition is just a remarkable sign of a healthy ecosystem, and really the a symbol of the bounty that they experienced last year. Leon, we're talking about Fat Bear Week, and the bears get fat on salmon at Brooks River, but salmon aren't the only animals that travel long distances to get to Brooks River. What should human visitors keep in mind if they're fortunate enough to visit the river in person this year?
Yeah, well, as we all know, it can be quite a challenge to get here. And last year, especially, many people experienced firsthand during the COVID 19 pandemic a lot of uncertainty and challenges during that time. And for us here at Brooks Camp and at Katmai overall, we are in a remote part of the world, but COVID still found its way here. While the pandemic is still very much a concern, we expect a much higher visitation this year as more people are getting vaccinated, as travel restrictions are lifted, and people are eager to get out there and kind of make up for some of that time last year. So for folks coming to Brooks Camp, we just want to remind them that the pandemic is still ongoing, and even though we have increased our services from last year, we still are not at full staff, and there are some alterations to our operations, all of which you can find online on our website. So if you are coming to Brooks Camp, be sure to check that out. That will give you a good idea of what is happening here. And if you are fortunate enough to make it, we ask that you take a leaf out of the bear book. And just like bears do have a personal space bubble, we ask that you too practice good social distancing while you're here. Follow CDC, state, local, and Park Service guidance. By recreating responsibly, you really help protect yourselves, other visitors, as well as park staff. So we definitely welcome you. We just want you to keep those things in mind. If you cannot join us in person, you can always connect with us virtually, whether it's online with our website, social media, and of course with the bear camps. And I think this season we're going to have a pretty good lineup. Naomi, could you tell us more about what we can see on the bear camps?
Lots of broadcasts this year. I'm really happy that Leon is joining the team. She has experience here and she's a great communicator. So that's very exciting. We're going to delve into the topics that you want to know more about. We're also going to do a little more presentation of the science and research that is done at Katmai, and not just along the Brooks River. We're going to go look at Hallow Bay, and there's also a wolf project, so we're going to look at that. And I think exciting for you viewers is that we're going to take you to some places that are not along the Brooks River where you can't see on the cams, like the valley or Hollow Bay or other places in the park. I mean, Katmai is this really vast, beautiful, incredibly interesting place. So we might even be able to show you those secret places where the bears go in August. So fingers crossed that we can do that. Mike, you have any thoughts about this 2021 season?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to all the live events that we have scheduled, and we'll get a full schedule for June and July posted on Explore.org's blog very soon. We're also going to host some question and answer sessions in the comments right here on the Brooks live chat channel. So if you scroll down below the live camera feed, you see the comments there. We'll be in there every Tuesday. Naomi and I will be there every Tuesday from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern time. And then we're also going to schedule some conversations in the comments on YouTube as well. And Leon will be joining me for those. We're going to post the schedule of those soon as well. If you have questions for us that you want to submit in advance, there's a button for that. You can find that in the Partners tab below the live camera feed on the left side of the page. It's the Ask Your Bearcam question button, so look for that. And often the volume of questions that are submitted through that are too high for us to answer every one of those individually, but rest assured that I do look at every one of those questions, and I do consider each one of those. So I thank you for your time in submitting those questions, and we'll try to answer as many of those as we can during our live broadcasts and Q&As in the chats this summer. If you want to learn more about the bears at Brooks River, a great place to go, of course, is Katmai National Park's website. You can find that at nps.gov/KATM. You can also find the Bears of Brooks River ebook there as well. You can just type in the Google Katmai Bear ebook, and it'll probably be the first hit. There's also a really great Bearcam fan-maintained wiki on the bears of the river, and some very dedicated individuals have been working very hard over the last several years to keep that as up-to-date as possible. Maybe the best way to search for that is just by searching for Bearcam Wiki or Katmai Wiki. As we start to conclude our broadcast today, I would like to thank the camera operators who volunteer their time to give us all these great views of the bears at Brooks River. They do volunteer their time. They are volunteers, not paid. So thank you very much, Cam Ops, for that. I would also like to thank the Explore.org staff who work very hard and very dedicated to the bear cams and making sure that this is a reality and a success. I'd like to thank the Rangers at Katmai for partnering with us through COVID and everything to bring the bear cams to your home. And we do have some updates to our cameras this year. All the cameras at Brooks River received new housing, so you should have a clearer view of those cameras. So that's great. The Falls camera was upgraded as well, including some infrared technology. So when the nights start to get darker at Brooks River, coming up maybe in late July, early August, we should be able to have some nighttime views of Brooks River as long as the battery power holds. And allows us to utilize that technology. And the Falls camera is also a higher resolution camera this year. So you'll be able to see details of the river and the bears that maybe you couldn't have seen in the past. So I'm really excited to see that and see what sort of screen captures you can gather by looking through that camera itself. It's been a great conversation today, Naomi and Leon. Thanks so much for joining me with this. And I'm so glad that you're part of Bearcam this year.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
From the drama of the salmon run, to the devotion of a mother bear, to the competition for fishing spots at the falls, and the success of a summer's work on display during Fat Bear Week, Bearcam 2021 will show us that bears and salmon live in a changing world, that's also one filled with competition. Each individual bear you see on the Bearcams has a unique story to tell, and I invite you to watch those stories along with us. My name is Mike Fitz. Thanks for joining us today. And as we like to say at explore.org, never stop learning.